Hi, my name's Samantha Kimmy,
And my name's Amanda Rogerson,
and this is the May edition of Louisville Linked.
and we're here today to talk to you about lobbying, specifically lobbying by 501c3 charitable organizations. And the reason we're here to talk to you about that today is we know a lot of organizations are really wary when it comes to lobbying. A lot feel like they really can't do a lot of lobbying, that they will lose their tax exempt status if they do. And we want to let you know exactly what the rules are and to let you know that you actually can do quite a bit of lobbying as long as you know what you're doing.
And so, first, we need to talk about what is lobbying. So, lobbying is classified as any type of communication that's intended to influence the creation or enactment of any type of legislation. And so, there are different kinds of lobbying. There's direct lobbying, which is when the organization itself contacts legislators or staffers in order to influence legislation. Or there's grassroots lobbying, when the organization asks the public to contact their legislator to influence said legislation.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that a lot of organizations feel like lobbying is sort of verboten territory is what's called the insubstantial part test. And this has been in effect since 1934. And essentially what it says is if you are a straight 501c3 organization, you can't spend a substantial amount of your activities, time, money, lobbying. So many organizations, because that's so vague and it's very unclear sort of what that constitutes, steer clear of it altogether. What they don't know often is that in 1976 another law was passed, and it's called the expenditure test law, and that means that if you're a 501c3 organization that elects 501h status, you actually have much broader parameters under which you can operate in terms of lobbying. Essentially what it is it's called the expenditure test for a reason. You can use up to a certain percentage of your exempt expenditures to lobby and be well within the law. And those limits are pretty generous and pretty clear. So essentially, you can spend 20% of the first $500,000 of your organization's exempt purpose expenditures, and then it goes down from there. 15% of the next $500,000, 10% of the following $500,000, and 5% of the following $500,000, with a cap of $1 million spent. So what this means is if you're an organization that has more than 17 million in exempt purpose expenditures, you might have an issue if you want to spend more on lobbying. But under that, you're going to be fine for lobbying as long as you don't spend more than $1 million.
And so, in addition to the clarity that the 501h designation gives you, there are additional benefits. For instance, there are no limits to lobbying activities that don't require money. For instance, if volunteers lobby on your behalf, because how can it be part of the expenditure test if there's no expenditure? In addition, by electing 501h status, you protect the managers of your organization. Under the insubstantial part test, if an organization exceeded if it was decided that they spend a substantial part of their time doing lobbying, the manager of the organization could be held personally responsible. However, under the expenditure test, no individual can be held responsible. It's simply the organization itself. And finally, under the 501h designation, organization must exceed that expenditure test for up to 4 years, for a 4-year period, before their 501c3 status could be revoked. Under the old test, if you spend a substantial part of time lobbying determined by someone, you could, in just 1 year, you can have that 501c3 status revoked.
Mm-hmm. The other thing we wanted to mention is that a lot of organizations fear that private foundations won't be able to give them money if they lobby, and private foundations are wary of giving money to organizations that do engage in lobbying activities. And the reality is that private foundations can give grants to organizations that lobby. They just can't earmark money for lobbying. So money they give for a project can be used if lobbying is integral to that project, but it can't be designated specifically for lobbying unless you're a a community foundation. And community foundations can earmark money for lobbying. They just have to then report it as a lobbying expenditure on their behalf. So it's pretty simple. We do want to remind you that if you are a straight 501c3, you are still subject to the insubstantial part test, but if you do elect a very simple procedure For 501H status, which is a simple form, you are subject to the much broader, more generous, clearer, safer rules according to lobbying. And if you do want more information about lobbying, we encourage you to visit the Alliance for Justice. They have some great information on their website. It's www.afj.org. And they also have a hotline that you can call if you have specific questions about lobbying, and that is 1-866-NP-LOBBY.
So we hope you enjoyed this video. We hope we've dispelled all myths about lobbying for 501c3 organizations. And we'll see you next month.
All right, take care.